This photo sucks. It sucks so bad. Getting this photo was like navigating an invisible minefield. It existed and had the potential to blow up in our face, but we didn't even know it was there. Back up 2 years ago to the end of August, we had planned a portaging trip in the middle of the pandemic, which meant it was very hard to find any available camping sites. Even in a normal summer when people aren't locked up at home trying to find something to do, everyone likes to go camping or portaging or get outside to enjoy the park. Planning this trip, we knew it was gonna be relatively easy. The portage lengths weren't that long. It was reasonable. We could carry all our stuff. The campsite we ended up booking involved a final stretch of getting through this river section. On the map, looked perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. The day where we set off to leave, we have a plan to get to our campsite before it starts to rain. There was an incoming rainstorm. It didn't look to be too bad. As long as we got to our campsite before sunset, we get to the final lake. It's getting pretty late into the afternoon, and we find this one section of the river where it looks pretty weedy, and we're thinking, can we get through there? Like, we don't want to end up in the middle of somewhere where we're trapped. We kind of do this thing where we go around this island a few times just to see if we can get through. And I'm there on this trip with my family, so finally we decide, let's split up and try and find different routes through this. And if you find something, stand up or yell so that someone can hear you, because the reeds that you're seeing, like you look into the back of this photo, it's pretty high. Like, it's high enough where I was in a kayak, and so I was really close to the water. I would either have to stand up or someone would have to stand up in order to wave to me. As we're going through, at first it looks okay, and then these mud mounds start to appear. Sometimes, the weeds can clump together and you just don't go through that way. But then I start to see more and more of these mud mounds. As I'm paddling with my kayak paddle, I start to realize I'm hitting more and more of this mud, whatever it is. Oh, like the bottom of my kayak is kind of rubbing against stuff here. And then as I'm paddling, I'm throwing up the dirt that I've now hit with my paddle onto the top of my kayak. Now my bag that I'm carrying is getting dirty. This is way more difficult than it should be. So I get up and I yell over to my family like, hey, are you having any luck? They're over there basically in the same scenario. Their paddles have now turned into shovels. Their canoe, because of all the extra weight that they had, is bottomed out on the riverbed, and they're trying to do one of these like shuffle and like everyone move together to move the canoes along. Oh, they're obviously not going the right way. Maybe I should get them to come back to where I am. I decide for a minute, I'm gonna get out of my kayak. I'm gonna try and stand on one of these mud mounds, because then maybe I'll be able to get higher and see if there's an actual way through. Supposedly people have been coming through here to get to the campsites that are ahead. So I work up all of my bravery and I'm like poking at this mound. Okay, that should be okay to stand on. I take one step. All right, it feels pretty good. Take a second step. Okay, I'm safe. I haven't been eaten up by a mud monster. I start to look for a way to go forward. It just looks like more and more mud, more and more of what you're seeing here just kind of clumping together. And if you were just swimming, maybe you could get through it, but you've got a canoe and a kayak and you're trying to maneuver, and you go forward and you hit a chunk of mud and you try and back up and you hit a chunk of mud. I'm starting to worry because the sun's going down. It's getting darker, and I know there's this rain approaching, and we want to set up our campsite, but our campsite is not even visible. We're nowhere close. We end up backing up a bit, and this island that we were effectively trying to get around this island, neither side of the island was offering any sort of path through. We look at the island and we think, let's just try and get there. Let's just try and get there and camp for the night. The last thing we want is to be paddling in the dark and getting stuck in mud. It was so bad at this point, my sister, who used to swim competitively, stands up in her canoe. She can't see me. It's getting darker and I'm in these reeds, and she's worried that I'm gonna get stuck and she's gonna have to jump out and swim through the mud to save me. As I'm in the middle of this river, looking around, trying to get out of it, I finally decide, let's just back up. Let's get to that island and hopefully we can camp there for the night. I back up, back through all of this mud, flinging mud up onto the top of my kayak. This is the end of me. I'm gonna die. My kayak is gonna sink from the weight of all this mud. We meet at the point where we had split off, and we look to our right and we see there's one of the camping sign logos. Oh my gosh, there's a campsite there. Nobody's on it. Let's just go there. There is no way we're getting through. We don't know if anyone else is getting through this. Whatever, let's jump on that island. If somebody comes, we'll just share it with them for the night. We got all our stuff set up. We ended up almost getting completely soaked out. After the storm broke, after the rain went away, the photo that you're looking at is the next morning. In the moment, we had no idea what the full extent of this muddy, gross condition was that we were trying to get through. All we could see were the 2 to 3 feet in front of us where there was either mud or there was no mud. We didn't see the larger picture of could we actually get through it. And so sometimes you're gonna be in the moment and it's gonna suck and you're not gonna know which way to go. In a day and age where photography currency is Instagram likes or how much ETH you can sell your photography NFTs for, this photo would basically be worthless. It doesn't have the sexiness appeal of an Insta-famous location, which means that in the eyes of social media, this photo kind of sucks. But let this be an encouragement to you and your photography. Your photos don't need to be Instagram bangers to be good. They don't need to be helicopter shots at the top of a mountain or an iconic photograph of exotic architecture. So sure, maybe in the eyes of social media, your photos suck or aren't very good, but they can still be good or even great photos because it's the memories and the stories behind those photos that are what really matter. Do you remember this?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember being right here?
Or that was Panic City. I was feeling panicked because Rhea was like, I have to go get him, he's stuck, because you were over.
She wanted to jump in the water.
Because she's a swimmer.
So
and
much
it was,
pain.
and then it rained like the second we got to our campsite. Stress City. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
But it was fun.